The very first sound I heard when the implants came online wasn't the sweet murmur of my son's laughter or the gentle background hum of life I'd been denied for 6 long years. It wasn't my own voice echoing back at me in wonder or the sound of music I once loved. It was her voice, my wife, in the kitchen, on the phone, speaking freely because she didn't know I could hear. "God, it's so much easier now," she said, chuckling into the receiver. He just nods and smiles. No arguments, no expectations. It's like being married to furniture. Then laughter. Not just hers, but another woman's. Her sister maybe, or a friend. And sometimes, her voice dropped a touch, a shade lower, but not low enough. Sometimes I think about what it'd be like if he just never came back from the hospital. My legs locked, I stood in the hallway, fingers curling at my sides as the wallpaper I'd always hated blurred before my eyes. I didn't make a sound. "I had dreams, you know," she said, her voice thin, distant, before he went all broken. I didn't need to hear anything else. For years, silence had been my only companion. After the stroke and the nerve damage that followed, I lived in a soundless world, learning to lip read, to sign, to mimic expressions I wasn't sure matched the moment. She stopped trying to communicate beyond the necessary. Locked phone calls, behind the bedroom door, whispered conversations that trailed off when I entered the room. A soft brush of her hand on my arm, like I was a delicate fixture she pitied. She thought I was gone, but the return of my hearing didn't bring back the quiet, compliant man she had learned to ignore. It brought back the man I used to be before all of this, the precise one, the patient one, the version of me that watched before he acted. I didn't say a word. Not that day. Not for 3 more weeks. I played the part, the mute husband, the docile parent, the silent observer. I let her carry on the illusion. Her fake smiles at dinner, her book club meetings, her late-night texts she never meant for me to read. But I read them. I installed tracking software, quietly. I'd worked in IT for years. This wasn't new ground. I cloned her SIM card, downloaded every chat, tracked her movements. She was careless. They always are when they think no one's listening. Her Sandra turned out to be Martin, a co-worker, a man I met once, arrogant, greasy, with a handshake that felt more like a dismissal than a greeting. Their messages weren't just flirtatious. They were surgical, emotionally intimate, a slow bleed of betrayal. "Sometimes I wish he'd just die in his sleep," she had written. I read it twice, not out of disbelief, but because it didn't hurt. Not anymore. I archived everything. No rage, no storm inside me, just a cold, crystalline clarity. I took a toothbrush from my son's bathroom and mailed it for a discreet paternity test. Paid in cash, no trail. I already knew, but I needed the proof. And still, I smiled at them across the table. My daughter asking if I wanted more rice. I nodded. My son recounting a scene from a movie I had yet to hear. I nodded again. She touched my arm as she passed by, as if we were still us. As if I hadn't heard her wish me dead. The envelope arrived. On a Tuesday. Plain. Brown. Sealed. Clinical. I waited until the house emptied out. Work. School. Errands. Then I sat at the kitchen table, the very place I'd first heard her again. I opened it. Probability of paternity, 0.000%. I read it again, and then once more, not out of shock, but because the absence of pain felt stranger than the result. I made tea that night after the dishes were done and the kids tucked away. I went upstairs and placed the envelope on her pillow. No note, no scribbled accusation, just the truth, sealed in a white sheet of paper. She found it around 9:30 p.m. I was downstairs, on the couch, watching her favorite show with the volume turned low. She came in pale, envelope clutched in her shaking hand. "What is this?" she asked, barely louder than a whisper. I looked at her, long and hard, let her see what stillness really looked like. Then I signed the words slowly and clearly. I heard everything. She didn't crumble right away, but the cracks formed instantly. "It was years ago," she stammered. "I thought you weren't even really you anymore." I stood, moved past her, picked up the remote, and turned off the TV. The silence between us was weightless and crushing all at once. Then I spoke. The first words I'd said in front of her in 6 years. clear, crisp, unmistakable. I got my hearing back a month ago. She gasped like she'd been struck. I stepped closer. I heard every lie, every wish for my death, every moan you gave him. I heard it all. I paused. Let the truth sink in. Let it fill her lungs with dread. You looked at me like I was furniture. I became the wall. And from the wall, I watched you. She reached out, tears now streaking her cheeks. But I stepped back. No anger, I said. Not anymore. Just consequences. I handed her a document. Already signed. Already dated. Divorce papers. She barely managed to catch it as I walked past her. No raised voices. No outburst. Just the quiet she used to crave now turned into judgment. I didn't pack. Didn't tell the kids. I left with nothing but my hearing and the silence I'd mastered. She called. She texted. She cried. I let it all ring unanswered. She had forfeited the right to my voice. She had surrendered the privilege of being heard. I gave 6 years of my life to silence. She gave those same years to betrayal. Now she can live in that silence. The one she once adored, the one she built for me, let it fill every corner of that house. Let it crawl across her skin in the lonely hours. Let it fester. Let it rot her from within. Because I don't need to hear her anymore. I already know exactly who she is. And that's all I ever needed.